Mm. Mm-hmm.
I had a dream. I had a dream. I got everything I wanted, not what you think. And if I'm being honest, it might have been a nightmare to anyone who might care.
What are the finest zone? Just own him on my own making. I can find it with the cool and fun sound. Things that has not built for the herb about everything that happened for a reason.
So I stepped off the gold.
What are the finances on it? Just own him on my own making not.
What are the finances on it? Just own him on my own making. I can find it with the cool and fun sound. Things that has not built for the herb about everything that happened for a reason. Make me wake this bed behind my eyes at night. There's only water for the umber for the inside of me with the turning of the falling to sleep. Deep the crossing of the
I
unknown.
had a dream.
However, speculate for the connection.
I got everything.
Form of the sexual stimulation.
But
You did not know me if you grace to save the sober. Sober life of the winter not gone. Everything but a love. Demand. Safety. Whistle. Hold. Herself.
As long as I'm
Again.
here,
Yeah.
no one can hurt
Soccer
you.
straps. He the slipper like a deal.
Don't
Mirror
wanna
concentrate on the
lie
abstract. Crescent moves, sleeping for the body of the cool. White reflected light. Because you're what we lost or left. Because the language is disaster for the species. Forgotten, cute, ankle, trip with the projector for the inner, outer, secret, empty, aching, walls, afterwards. Words to do with the conscious, long towards the surface, joy, sorrow, crash into air. Oh, how I wish if the language of disaster by the mind. The crescent moon for you reflected and deflected life of the everything below. And I pledge to sit that upright for the over the everything over the dust of the conceit. Even it doesn't remind you of yesterday, but the last for the attack, for the disregard for the breath of the corpse, and doing it over the bus and the emptied on the mind. I rage for the belly, for the dome, and the gas is simply enough for the way. For the honey, I'm home for the carry on, the flower for the vapor, the fibers in the nose, and the half and the heavenly stranger enough for the discount for you be a bird. Cliche, fear nothing, for there's nothing left to fear. I don't again, I'm no hurry for the time to bring you be a rose, or the peanut for the braids that guide the sky. Let my tongue be glad about that warm crimson bed. I swear to like bite. With the start for the bell, you just scratch that for the name of the song. Begin out again. Up and down the cap, chatting for the clouds and trees, for the for the worm with the high, for the ear, for the disemboweled, for the like a sea for this, so has a load, and there's an almost with another for the high. Time for the secret to come roll about the proving in the night, for the rhythm self, for the find the gravity in the tongue, for the love, for the witch's tongue, for the rain, for the stone. Stone for the leaf, for the wind, for the wind and the moan, for the giving up, for the once and voice, and passing cleaning over the virtual part, for the ocean, the rises over the roars, and settlement over the roaring back in the thought. What are the finances? Own it, own my own making, I can find it, but the cool and fun sound. Things that has not built for the herb about everything that happened for a reason. Make me wait this day behind my eyes tonight. There's only water for the umber for the inside of me with the turning of the falling to sleep. Deep the crossing of the unknown. However, speculate for the connection. Form of the sexual stimulation. You did not know me if you grace to save the soul. Sober life of the moon or not gone. Everything but a love. Demand. Safety. Whistle. Hold. Herself. Together. Again. Brutal. Yeah. Soccer straps. He the slick like a deal. Mirror concentrated on abstract. Crescent moves, sleeping for the buddies with the cool. White reflected, deflected light. Because you're what we lost or left be. Because the language is a disaster for the species. Forgotten, acute angles. Trip with the dream for the projector for the inner, outer, secret, empty, aching, temple, walls, afterwards. Words to do with the conscious, long towards the surface. Joy, crash into air. Oh, how I wish the language of disaster by the mind. The crescent moon for you reflected and deflected. And I pledge to sit that upright for the everything over the dust and the conceit. Even it doesn't remind you of yesterday, but the last for the attack, for the disregard for the breath of the corpse, and the bus and the emptied on the mind. Wait for the belly, for the dome, and the gas is simply enough for the way. For the honey, I'm home for the carry on, the flower for the vapor, the fibers in the nose, and the heavenly stranger enough for the discount for you be a bird. Cliche for nothing, but there's nothing left to fear. I don't have no hurry for the time to bring you. Be a rose and the peanut for the braids that guide the sky. Let my tongue be glad about that warm crimson day. I swear I like bite. But I would have started for the value to scratch that for the name of the song from the beginning and again. Up and down the cap, chatting for the clouds and trees and the bees for the worm and the hive for the beer for the surprise for the bill of the thing of like a sea for this has a low for there's an almost with another for the high. Time for the secret to come rolling by for the proving in the night for the rhythm of everything. The finding gravity in the tongue of the love, for the witch's tongue of the rain for the snow. Storm for the leaf and the wind for the wind and the moan for the giving up with the ones and voice and past the clean over the virtual part of the ocean. The rises over the roars and settling over the roaring back in the thought. What are the finances on my own making I can find it. Moving by the time the sound. Veins that has not built for the hurt one that about everything that happened for no reason. Make me weightless, beg behind my eyes tonight. There's only water for the umber for the inside of me with the turning of the falling to sleep. Deep at the crossing of the unknown. However, speculate for the connection. In the form of the sexual stimulation. You did not know me if you graze the saber sober life of the wounded off guard and everything but a love.
As long as I'm
Hold herself together against brutal.
don't wanna lie,
He the slick like a deal mirror concentrated on abstract. The crested moon sweeping for the button. White reflected light. Because you're what we lost or left me. Because the language is a disaster for the species. Forgotten, cute, angry, projected with the inner, outer, secret, empty, aching, temple, walls. Afterwards, whereas to do with the conscious long towards the surface, joy, sorrow, crash into air. Oh, how I wish the language of disaster by the mind, the crescent moon, reflecting everything. And I pledge to sit that upright for the curve of the over the dust and the kiss, even it doesn't remind you of yesterday, but the life of the tax, the disregard for the breath of the corpse, and the thing of the bus and the empty on the mind. Wait for the belly for the dome, the gas is simply enough for the way for the honey. I'm home for the carry on the flower for the fibers and the nose, and the heavenly stranger and the just count for you. Cliche for nothing, but there's nothing else to fear. I don't have no hurry for the time to bring you. Be a rose and the peanut for the braids that guide the sky. Let my tongue be glad about that warm crimson bed. I swear I like bite. But over the started for the value to scratch that for the name of the song from the beginning and again. Up and down the caps, you can follow. Chatting for the clouds and trees and the bees for the worm and the hive for the beer for the disabroad for the billow for the thing of like a sea for this has a low so there's an almost with another for the high. Time for the secret to come roll by for the proving in the night for the rhythm set for the you can find the gravity in the tongue for the love for the witch's tongue and the rain for the snow. Storm for the leaf and the wind for the wind and the moan for the giving up of the wants and wars and past the cleaning over the virtual part for the ocean. The rises over the roars and settling over the roaring back in the thought. What are the finances on it? Just own him on my own making I can find it with the cooling time to sound. Veins that has not built for the hurt one that about everything that happened for a reason. Make me weightless, beg behind my eyes tonight. There's only water for the umber for the inside of me with the turning of the falling to sleep. Deep the crossing of the unknown. However, speculate for the connection. In the form of the sexual stimulation. You did not know me if you graze the saber sober life of the wounded off guard and everything but a love. Demand, safety, whistle, hold herself together against brutal days. Only soccer straps. He the slick like a dildo. Mirror concentrated on abstract. The crested moon sleeping for the buttons with the cool white reflected light. Because you're what we lost or left me. Because the language is a disaster for the species. Forgotten or cute ankles. Trip with the dream for the projected for the inner, outer, secret, empty, aching, temple, walls. Afterwards, whereas to do with the conscious long towards the surface, joy, sorrow, crash into air. Oh, how I wish the language of disaster on the crescent moon, reflecting life of the everything but love. And I pledge to sit that upright for the curve of the over the dust and the kiss, even it doesn't remind you of yesterday, but the life of the tax, the disregard for the breath of the corpse, and the lingo over the bus and the empty on the mind. Wait for the belly for the dome, the gas is simply enough for the way for the honey. I'm home for the carry on the flower for the river, the fibers and the nose and the having stranger enough for the discount for the you to be a bird. Cliche for nothing, but there's nothing left to fear. I don't have no hurry for the time to bring you. Be a rose or the peanut for the braids that guide the sky. Let my tongue glad about that warm. I swear I like bite. I'm started for the value to scratch that for the middle of the song. Begin out again. Up and down the caps, chatting for the clouds and trees, for the worm and the hive, for the ear for the sprout for the bill like a sea for this has a low and there's an almost with another for the high. Time for the secret to come roll about for the proving in the night for the rhythm set for the you can find the gravity in the tongue with the love for the tongue of the rain. Don't for the leaf and the wind for the wind and the moan for the giving up of the ones and wars and past the cleaning over the virtual part of the ocean. The rises over the roars and settling over the roaring back in the thought. What are the finances on it? You own them on my own making. Find it. I understand things that has not built for the herb on the earth about everything that happened for a reason. Make me weightless, bed behind my eyes tonight. There's only water for the umber, for the inside of me, for the turning of the falling to sleep deeply.
But my head was underwater.
And it was a new way to express yourself.
And it was a new way to express yourself. I asked that man with the fancy herb with the shirt that would fit for the grain. The girl stood, hold her balance of the frame rope. How to hold frame, hold still, hold unpolished for the yellow skin for the door, for the you can find the terrace of the downing way. I find that green. You must be alert for the stain, for the mosquito bite, for the bread pain, for the beating of the brain, for the just to be the guided for the fishing, to worry about their sleep, for the soul for forgotten, how the mouth unknown. Upstream for the just to be the down, find the dolphin leaving, slipping for the skin, for the water, for the next to the find the banner, for the over the way, for you can find yourself for the boat, for the native in the passage, naive enough for the sibling, or not for the wrong place. Walk like a monologue for the pause of the word. Really making a turn for yet becomes acute. The angle for the landscape and the shadow of return for the partially foaming home at the corner. Start talking, wave, you, girl, find a product. We found with that availability for the bird, for the band, for the world, with a need for the owner to find the other remain. Keys won't fit. Dark driver, moonrise, to lock strip for your start, whale for the mouth, well for the breast, and the hips, and for the over the copper, for the rock back, for the waves, and find a blood drip. Head first for the laugh, and laugh for the scene, for the mother, for the difference, and nothing else to see. Put in a butterfly first to the shaker for the purple new dust in the air for the furthest in the corner. It would be said enough to put in a state for the bit of my food, for the silence, for the stone, for the ever there, so this food after that. Definition unwoven for the present. You can find out for the bearing, for the needs to be said, for the death, for the cannot be, for the over the feels and never matter what, for the structure, for the art not to be read. Particular but enough for the hope and the close enough to be where you can find the set it appear for the natural, the bearing, all for that, for the sitting at the opposite, for the close enough to be maybe yourself desperate. And to play that for the gesture, for the solitude, or maybe for the company of the face that could be read the signs in the binding for the time knew that meant what ceased to wonder with the despair. Curse that for the what you got the story to the meta, but brought for the pending over the quarters. I mean, I can find it waiting. And then for departure, your pen on them didn't turn for the time, but they find a night for the court. Should wait enough could come in instead of you wait. A lover's discourse. Didn't knew she would take so much of my time, for I knew that the time was up. See staff for the definition, but you can find and cannot find the things, and no matter whether how you find the structure, you are not to be read. And it was a crucifix, a dart for the back, for the threat, for this to be the mask. The jaws open for the woman of the bread of professor, the language for that the whole still stays home. Third, fire, stay, panic, home. Rigid. Rush me for the sacred of the gold, for the Christ in their eye, for the felt, for the pistol, for the basana, for the bucket, for the death, for the whip, for the how east. Now I get to her. A lemon bomb is for forgiveness and pull up the root. Boiling knife for the bones of the hummingbird with the drink rail. Feel ready for the drink if you do not for that road. The seats of the courage of the only. Sprinkle the dim for the tongue, for the this be the long. Whenever the brother, the pepper, the concrete for the part. You need that for the courage as you can get. The water is for the heated, for the leaf, the jar, for the open up, for the beneath, that full moon, for the letter rest of the water, for punch your wash your way, to wash your face and drink that for the sharpened blade, for the memory, for the metal, for the living and the growing, weary enough for the coming and going. Wrap that blade for the newspaper. Keep you beneath the bed for the pages and the finer news. I had to be the vision. There was that place for the never far, for the reverend to meet, for the sword off for the pit and enough for the coming back for the thoughts of drift and wind and pray to you for the swollen, the water for the loneliness, spit that for the belly, for the mangrove, for the God. Every white rain for the inner, that untrue, for the disability, the making and the burly, keep up the bones together, for the not so good, for the honors and the holy, the medallion, for the to be the safe, for there is so much that I can tell you. Perhaps I will confide in the goddess of birth, for the beast, the mother, for the older, for the fathers, to write a letter for the mother, for the invisible enough for the pigment, for the gold, for the brine. Follow to the earth, a careless handful, chorus and silence of my own making. A new way to express yourself. I asked that man with the fancy herb with the shirt that would fit for the grain. The girl stood, hold her balance of the frame rope. How to hold frame, hold still, hold unpolished for the yellow skin for the door, for the you can find the terrace of the downing way. I find that green. You must be alert for the stain, for the mosquito bite, for the bread pain, for the beating of the brain, for the just to be the guided for the fishing, to worry about their sleep, for the soul for forgotten, how the mouth unknown. Upstream for the just to be the down, find the dolphin leaving, slipping for the skin, for the water, for the next to the find the banner, for the over the way, for you can find yourself for the boat, for the native in the passage, naive enough for the sibling, or not for the wrong place. Walk like a monologue for the pause of the word. Really making a turn for yet becomes acute. The angle for the landscape and the shadow of return for the partially foaming home at the corner. Start talking, wave, you, girl, find a product. Leave with that availability for the bird, for the band, for the world, with a need for the owner to find the other remain. Keys won't fit. driver, moon, rise, to lock, strip, for your start, well for the mouth, well for the breast, from the hips, over the cock, over the rock pipe, for the raise, and find a blood drip. Head first for the laugh, and that for the scene, for the mother, for the difference, and nothing else to see. Put in a butterfly first, to the shaking for the purple new dust in the air, for the furthest in the corner, it would be safe enough to put in a steak for the bit of my food, for the silence, for the stone, for the ever there, so this food after that. Definition unwoven for the threads, and you can find that for the bearing, for the needs to be said, for the death, for the cannot be, for the over the feels, and never matter what, for the structure, for the art not to be read. Particular for enough for the hope and the close enough to be worthable. You can find the set it appear for the natural, the varying, all for that, for the sitting at the opposite, for the close enough to be making yourself desperate. And it played that for the gesture, for the solitude, or maybe for the company of the face that could be read the signs in the binding for the time knew that meant what ceased to wonder with the despair. Curse that for the what you got the story to the meta, but brought for the pending over the quarters. I mean, I can find it waiting. Nah, for departure. Your pen on them didn't turn for the time, but they find a night for the court ship. Wait, enough could come in instead that you wait. A lover's discourse. Didn't knew she would take so much of my time, for I knew the time was up. See staff for the definition, but you can find and cannot find the things, and no matter whether how you find the structure, you are not to be read. And it was a crucifix, a dart of the back, for the threat, for this to be the mask. Jaws open for the whooping of the bread of professor, the language over that the whole still stays home. There, fine, stay, panic, home. Rigid. Rush me for the sinking of the gold, for the Christ in their eye, for the fell, for the pistol, for the Messana, for the buckling over the death, for the whipper, the how easy now I get to her. And a lemon bomb is for forgiveness and pull up the root. Boiling knife for the bones of the hummingbird with the drink rail. Feel ready for the drink if you do not for the seeds of the courage of the only. Sprinkle the dim for the tongue, for the this to be the long. Whatever the brother to pepper, the concrete of the part. You need that for the courage as you can get. Water is for the healing, for the leaf, for the jar, for the open up, for the beneath that full moon, for the letter rest of the water, for punch your wash your way, wash your face and drink that for the sharpened blade, for the memory, for the metal, for the living and the growing, weary enough for the coming and going. Wrap that blade for the newspaper, keep you beneath the bed for the patience and the finding news. I had to be the visual. There was that place for the never far, for the river, the beat, for the sword off, for the pit, and enough for the coming back, for the thoughts of drift and wind and pray to you, for the swollen, the water, for the lonely, to spit that, for the belly, for the mangrove, for the guy, every white rain, for the inner, that untrue, for the this to be the making and the barely keep up the bones together, for the not soothing, for the honors and the holy, the medallion, for the to be the safe, for there is so much that I can tell you. Perhaps I will confide in the goddess of birth, for the this to be the mother, for the ozone, for the fathers, and the writing letter for the mother, for the invisible enough, for the pigment, for the gold luster, for the bride, vine, falling to the earth, a careless handful, force and silence in my own making. And it was a new way to express yourself. I asked that man with the fancy herb, with the shirt that would fit for the grain. The girl stood, hold her balance of the frame rope. How to hold frame, hold still, hold unpolished for the yellow skin for the door, for the, you can find the terrace of the downing way. I find that green. Must be alert for the stain, for the mosquito bite, for the bread pain, for the beating with the brain, for the just to be the guided for the fishing to worry about their sleep, for the soap for forgotten, how the mouth unknown. Upstream for the just to be the down, find the dolphin leaping, slipping for the skin, for the water, for the next to the finding banner, for the over the way, for you can find yourself for the boat, for the native in the passage, naive enough for the sibling, or not for the wrong place. Walk like a monologue for the pause of the word. Really making the turn for yet becomes acute. The angle for the landscape and the shadow of return for the partially foaming home with the corner start talking. Wave, you, girl, find a product. Leave out of that availability for the bird, for the band, for the road. With the need for the owner to find the other remain. Keys won't fit. Dark driver, moon, rise, to lock, strip for your start. Well for the mouth, well for the breast, from the hips, and for the over the cock, for the rock back, for the raise, and find a blood drip. Head first for the laugh, and laugh for the scene, for the mother, for the difference, and nothing else to see. Put in a butterfly first to the shaking for the purple new dust in the air, for the furthest in the corner, it would be safe enough to put in a steak for the bit of my food, for the silence, for the stone, for the ever there, so this food after that. Definition unwoven for the threads, and you can find that for the bearing, for the needs to be said, for the death, for the cannot be, for the over the feels, and never matter what, for the structure, for the art not to be read. Particular for enough for the hope and the close enough to be worthable. You can find the set it appear for the natural, the varying, all for that, for the sitting at the opposite, for the close enough to be making yourself desperate. And it played that for the gesture, for the solitude, or maybe for the company of the face that could be read the signs in the binding, for the time knew that meant what ceased to wonder with the despair. Curse that for the what you got the story to the minute, but brought with the pending over the quarters. I mean, I can find it waiting. Nah, for departure. Your pen on them didn't turn for the time, but they find a night for the court. Shit, wait, enough could come in instead of you wait. A lover's discourse. Didn't knew she would take so much of my time, for I knew the time was up. See staff for the definition, but you can find and cannot find the things, and no matter whether how you find the structure, you are not to be read. And it was a crucifix, a dart of the back, for the threat, for this to be the mask. Jaws open for the whooping of the bread of professor, the language over that the whole still stays home. There, fine, stay, panic, home. Rigid. Rush me for the sinking of the gold, for the Christ in their eye, for the fell, for the pistol, for the Messana, for the buckling over the death, for the whipper, the how east now I get to her. And a lemon balm is for forgiveness and full of the root. Boiling knife for the bones of the hummingbird with the drink rail. Feel ready for the drink if you do not for that growth. The seeds of the coverage of the only. Sprinkle the dim for the tongue, for the this to be the long. Whatever the brother to bever, the concrete of the part. You need that for the courage as you can get. Water is for the healing, for the leave a jar, for the open up, for the beneath that full moon, for the let it rest with the water, for the punch your wash your praise and wash your face and drink that for the sharpened blade, for the memory, for the metal, for the living and the growing, weary enough for the coming and going. Wrap that blade for the newspaper, keep you beneath the bed for the patience and the finer news. I had to be the visual. There was that place for the never far from the river, the beat where the sword off for the pit and enough for the coming back for the thoughts and drift and wind and pray to you for the swollen the water for the lonely to spit that for the belly for the mangrove for the god. Every white rain for the inner that untrue for the disability to make it in the barrel to keep up with bones together for the not soothing for the wholeness and the holy and medallion for the to be the same for there is so much that I can tell you. Perhaps I will confide in the goddess of birth for the this will be the mother for the for the flowers and the writing letter for the mother for the invisible enough for the pigment for the gold for the bride. Fine. Fall into the earth a careless handful. Force and silence in my own making. And it was a new way to express yourself. I asked that man with the fancy herb with the shirt that was fit for the cream. The girl stood, hold her balance of the frame rope. How to hold frame, hold still, hold unpolished for the yellow skin for the door. For the, you can find the terrace of the downing way. I find that green. You must be alert for the stain, for the mosquito bite, for the red pain, for the beating with the brain, for the just to be the guided for the fishing, to worry about their sleep, for the soul for forgotten, how the mouth unknown. Upstream for the just to be the down, find the dolphin leaving, slipping for the skin, for the water, for the next to the find the banner, for the over the way, for you can find yourself for the boat, for the native in the passage. Naive enough for the sibling, or not for the wrong place. Walk like a monologue for the pause of the word. Really making a turn for yet becomes acute. With the angle for the landscape and the shadow will return for the partially foaming home at the corner. Start talking, wave, you, girl, find a product. Feeling with that availability for the bird, for the band, for the world, with the need for the owner to find the other remain. Keys won't fit. Dark driver, moon, rise, to lock strip for your start, wheel for the mouth, well for the breast, from the hips, and with the over the copper, for the rock back, for the rage, and find the blood drip. Head first for the laugh, and the laugh for the scene, for the mother, for the difference, and nothing else to see. Put in a butterfly first to the shaking for the purple new dust in the air for the furthest in the corner. It would be said enough to put it in the state for the bit of my food for the silence for the stone for the ever there so the school after that. Definition unwoven for the threads and you can find out for the bearing for the needs to be said for the death for the cannot be for the over the feels and never matter what for the structure for the art not to be read. Particular but enough for the hope and the close enough to be worth it. You can find the set of the appear for the natural the varying all for that for the sitting at the opposite for the close enough to be making yourself desperate. And it played that for the gesture for the solitude. Maybe for the company for the face that could be read the signs in the binding for the time knew that meant was ceased to wonder with the despair. Curse that for the what you got the story to the minute, but brought for the pending over the quarters. I mean, I think I find it waiting. That for departure. Your pendulum didn't turn for the time, but define a night for the court. Shit, wait, enough could come in instead that you wait. A lover's discourse. Didn't knew she would take too much of my time, for I knew the time was up. See stat for the definition, but you can find and cannot find the things, and no matter whether how you find the structure, you are not to be read. And it was a crucifix, a dart for the back, for the threat, for this to be the mask. Jaws open for the movement of the breath of the fist, the language over that the whole still stays home. Third, there, find, stay, panic, on. Rigid. Rush me for the second of the gold, for the Christ in their eye, for the felt, for the pistol, for the basana, for the bucket.